Hi everyone, I'm Melanie. Welcome back to my channel. Today we have my recap for September. This month I would say wasn't my favorite month. After August being such a great reading month, I guess I couldn't really keep that momentum going. I also read too much in August, I think, so I was a bit slower this month, only reading 8 books. Well, technically I finished like the last story in one of them, so under 8 books I would say, and some of them were short as well, so I definitely took a little more time to get through some books this month, which is okay, you know, not every month is going to be a crazy reading month. I don't think I had a 5-star this month, which was also okay. I had some pretty great reads, just nothing that hit the 5-star mark necessarily. And I think overall, a lot of my books focused on fall atmospheric vibes and more character-driven stories. I think that's just kind of how my choices netted out, because I wanted to read some dark academia and Gothic and some T. Kingfisher as well. So those aren't usually my go-tos for a fun, enjoyable read, but I'm glad I did read all of them. So I think next month I'm going to try to focus on some more fun reads thrown in there as well. I was also only able to get to 1 audiobook this month because I reached my limit for Spotify hours. Finally, somehow I hadn't before, but I wanted to then save up the remaining hours because I paid for like the extra 10 hours because, you know, I'm crazy. I wanted to keep the extra leftover for my trip, so I had plenty of hours for audiobooks that I want to read on my flights or throughout the trip. So, that being said, 8 is still a great number. It's still way more than I usually read anyways, so I'm proud of that. Hi everyone, editing me here. I guess I accidentally hit the 0.5 wide lens extender for this whole shoot, which I didn't realize, which looking back, I did have to put my camera quite close to my face, so that should have been a sign. But this quality isn't 4K like it usually is. It is a little grainy, so I'm sorry about that. But I mean, it kind of represents how this month went for me, so hope you enjoy the video. So let's start with what I first picked up this month, and that is Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher. This is one I read on Kindle Unlimited, so I don't have a physical copy yet. I probably will eventually. I'm just running out of space on my bookshelves, and I don't have another spot to add more bookshelves, so I am not buying all the books that I've read via audiobook or ebooks like I used to at the moment, though I'm kind of sad about that because I like having a physical copy. But I really enjoyed Nettle and Bone. It is about a princess who is later sent to a convent to become a nun because she is deemed unuseful or on hold by her parents, while meanwhile her other sister is married off to another kingdom to prevent war or them taking over them basically. And she finds out that her sister is not treated well by the prince there, and then goes on a quest to figure out how to save her sister. And on this quest she meets a graveyard witch called a dustwife, fairy godmothers, a chicken with a demon inside of it, and a dog made of bones. So it's a very quirky cast of characters. This one reminded me a lot of Weird Sisters, especially the dustwife itself were similar to Granny Weatherwax and all of them in Weird Sisters. So it was just a fun, enjoyable experience, but also with very dark themes. So don't go into it thinking that it's going to be a funny, fun romp. It is pretty dark at moments and what they're dealing with. So it feels cozy, but it's like a little spooky cozy kind of situation. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I gave this one a 4.5 stars. The next book I read is a newer dark academia book that just came out, and that is The Temptation of Magic by Megan Scott. I did mention this briefly in another video, I believe, but this is about a girl who is hiding from the Wake, which is a society that controls all creatures, supernatural creatures, and her family is hiding from them because she herself is an Imperial, which is a creature that can shapeshift into any other creature to kill them as soon as that creature activates their kill hormones. So very interesting concept and creature. But she is hiding from them because the Wake finds every Imperial to control them and make them do their bidding. And so she and her family have been hiding for a long time, and she is an art history major, and her mother has left clues and pieces of art throughout their lives in order to help them stay safe from the Wake. So she is trying to find the last clue left by their mother, and in doing so gets entwined with a mysterious creature that has come to town and is killing people. And then the Wake sends an Imperial after this creature, and they end up meeting and getting involved with each other. And yeah, there's a bit of romance in here, lots of art history talk, which is nice. The characters are very interesting and well written, I would say, and definitely has more of a plot, so that was fun, and I had a great time reading this. I think if you're more of a romantasy person and looking to get some dark academia vibes, I think this book is a great choice for you. Definitely more of a romantasy. The romance is a big part of the book. The mystery and the story is very interesting as well, so don't get me wrong, but this, I believe, is going to be at least another book, so it didn't end. It ended a bit on a cliffhanger. I do think I will pick up the next one. And though this is YA, it definitely felt more new adult and not super young, so that was a nice point. And I really did read this quickly, so that was nice. I did thoroughly enjoy this. I ended up giving this 4 stars. The next book is the one audiobook that I read this month, and this book I specifically chose for a future video I am working on. So it's a little outside of what I typically read, I would say. And that is How to Become the Dark Lord and Die Trying by Django Wexler. This one I had heard a few of other booktubers mention that they wanted to read or have read, and so I was intrigued, and I read this for a very specific reason that you will understand later, and I have no idea when that video is coming out, so don't hold your breath. But the audiobook narrator was really good. She did a lot of very interesting accents to differentiate the types of characters, because there's a lot of different creatures in this book. And so this book is very similar to a video game. A lot of people relate it to RPG video game type world, though it's not actually a video game. It's about Davi, who is stuck in a time loop in this unknown world where she has died, I think, over 200 times, and every time she dies, she starts back to where she showed up initially. And so she's made a lot of effort to try to save this kingdom from the Dark Lord, but a lot of things always go awry, and so she hasn't been able to ever accomplish that. And so this time around, she decides that she wants to become the Dark Lord now and stop trying to fight against the Dark Lord, and she'll just become the Dark Lord instead. So she goes on this journey to become the Dark Lord. And how, you might ask? Well, you gotta read the book. I will say it was pretty funny. I had a good time listening to this, but I will say, like, my biggest issue with this book, so our main character, Davi, is bisexual, and I think he went a little too much into the stereotype of bisexuals being hypersexual beings and constantly wanting to have sex with everyone, because there's a lot of that in this book. So that's like my one gripe with this book. I don't think this book was 100% for me, just because I'm not a gamer and I'm not too into that type of world, but I did enjoy it. So I do think a lot of people will really like it, and it is a fun story, and it is interesting, and it does have a plot in it. It doesn't drag a lot, so that was nice, and they have some really fun characters in there, and it's kind of a no rules world, and that's really fun. And I do believe this is a series. I don't know if I'll continue or not. I haven't decided that. I think the next book comes out next year, but I gave this book 3.5 stars. The next 2 books I have a reading vlog out about, so I'm not going to go into too much detail about them, but the first one is The Secret History by Donna Tartt. I read this as part of a Dark Academia vlog. So this book follows Richard, who joins Hampton College halfway through his college career in order to get out of California and experience something new. And he comes across this interesting group of students that are studying under a professor who only has these 5 students, and they study everything from him, including ancient Greek, philosophy, all the classics. And so this group is very exclusive. He's not allowed to join. And so he gets intrigued by them and kind of wants to learn more about them. And then eventually he's able to join this small class and starts to get to know these people on a more familiar level, and things start to get weird. And they're interesting and have mysterious backgrounds, and the things they like to do are maybe not what one would expect. And so we go down this kind of rabbit hole of these people slowly learning more. And yeah, it's a very interesting and well-written book. Very, very character-driven. And I think the characters and the character arcs and development are impeccably done. Not very big on a plot. There is kind of a plot, but it's a very draggy, slow book and dense, so it takes a while to read. It took me almost 3 weeks to read this book, and I read almost every day of that time, so just not for everyone. But I think if you like literary fiction, I think you will really like this book. Definitely not for like fantasy readers, I would say. So yeah, I gave this one 4.5 stars, but I broke that out between 5 stars for the writing and 4 stars for enjoyment factor. So the average of that is 4.5 stars. And then the other book I read for my Dark Academia vlog was Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. This one took me a while to get into. I think a lot of it is set up and world building for more than half of the book, and then it finally gets into something. And I know there's a second book, so I assume more plot will be in the second book. But the vibes in the atmosphere and the setting at Yale was really interesting. The secret societies. Oh wait, I'll tell you what it's about. This is about Alex Stern, who is scouted by the dean at Yale in order to join a group called Lethe, who oversees and manages all of the ancient secret societies at Yale. And so there's 8 ancient houses, and each of them deals with the occult in a different way. And so they're kind of focused on different types of magic. Because Alex was born being able to see ghosts, she was scouted by the dean and then asked to join. And so her teacher, who is called the Virgil to her Dante, is training her and mysteriously disappears at some point. And so there's 2 storylines, one set in the beginning of the school year, one in the middle of the school year, one from Darlington, who is the one who disappeared's perspective of teaching Alex, and then Alex's perspective after Darlington has left. She's dealing with a murder on the campus that she thinks is connected to the societies. So it's a big mystery. There's 2 mysteries in one for you. And my only issue with this book is it kept going and stopping. Like, the more you learned and the more the plot progressed, it kind of backtracked and went back to like childhood stories or things that happened before that weren't really relevant to where we moved in the plot. And so it was just kind of a little choppy, and that was my biggest issue with it. And I wanted just to get somewhere. It just took so long to actually get the plot moving. So that being said, I did really like the ending and where it ended up. So I did like this book. I think I also gave this one 4 stars. And I am very curious to read Hellbent because I think that one will be better. And I've heard it is the case as well. So I'll keep you posted on that one. The next book that I finally finished is Tales from the Cafe by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. This one I also talked about in August because I read 3 out of 4 stories, and then I finally read the 4th story via audiobook this month, so it is officially done, and I'm very happy about it. This one I gave 4.5 stars, just because I don't think all of the stories were as strong as the ones in Before the Coffee Gets Cold, but that being said, I did cry in reading most of them, so they're still impactful and strong, but I'm very curious to see where they're going to go with the next book and the types of relationships they'll choose for that one. And lastly, we have another set of books that I covered in a reading vlog for Gothic books, and that starts with We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. This one is about a family who all of them have died except for 2 girls and an uncle, and they are very much shut-ins, shunned from the villagers, not liked by everyone. They live in this house on a hill that no one ever goes to. They live isolated. One of the sisters is agoraphobic and scared to leave, and the other sister is definitely neurodivergent in some way. The uncle has Alzheimer's as well, so they're dealing with a lot. But this story follows Mary Catherine, or Mary Cat is our main character. And there's not a big plot, but the inciting incident is their cousin decides to show up and give them a visit, and then weird things start to happen and chaos kind of ensues. It's a weird one. This is definitely a weird book. One for weird girl lit lovers. And yeah, if you can see the cover, it's pretty accurate. It's short. I got through this mostly in a day, and it was just a very interesting read. I'm glad I read something from Shirley Jackson. I'm curious about her other books, so I ended up giving this one 4 stars. And then the last book that I read is Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This one was also pretty short, around 300 pages. This follows Noemi, or Nomi. I may have mispronounced her name this entire time, but she is a socialite, part of a well-known family in Mexico City, and recently her cousin Catalina was married off to an Englishman who lives in the Mexican countryside. And one day her father gets this weird, upsetting letter from Catalina where she's writing nonsense and doesn't make sense, and she seems mentally unstable. And so Noemi's father sends Noemi to the house, which is called High Place, in order to check on Catalina. And so this house is in an old mining town where the family who Catalina married into, the Doyles, used to own a silver mine that is now shut down. And so this house is weird and old and dark and maybe slightly sentient on this grounds with a big cemetery, and all the Doyles still live there, and it is just a weird situation. Noemi doesn't really know what she's walking into, but there's some things to figure out, and that is what she does. This one is very dark. I would say darker than We Have Always Lived in the Castle. Themes are pretty upsetting, so check trigger warnings for some cases. It's just like my stomach was churning a lot of the time, and I don't know why. That happens rarely, but just how the situations played out was unsettling for me. And so that was new. I do think this was well done. I just wish it went a little faster. I actually don't think it had to be this long. I think most of the action takes place in the last 100 pages, so I think it takes a little too long to get there. But that being said, the setup of the characters was important and that made sense, so do with that what you may. This one's definitely great for fall. The atmospheric vibes are 100% spooky and weird and misty and dark. So if you want something a little darker, a la What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher, I would say I would compare this to, because they both contain a lot of mushrooms. But actually a lot of these books this month have contained mushrooms. Like The Secret History, they talked about mushrooms a lot. In We Have Always Lived in the Castle, she talks about mushrooms. This book has mushrooms everywhere. Is there anything else? Lots of mushrooms this month. So someone tell me why is that? Is that a theme for Gothic books? Like, for a Gothic book to be Gothic, does it have to have some sort of mushroom in it? Because, like I said, What Moves the Dead also has mushrooms in it, and that is a Gothic book. So, someone tell me, please? I don't get it. I get it, but I also don't. I guess fungus and mushrooms are kind of creepy and weird, and the way they work are weird, but yeah, okay. To each his own, I guess. So I did end up giving this book 4 stars as well. So that wraps up my September recap, and I think it was a decent month. lots of 4 stars, I would say, which for me is a great rating, but also like not the best in a weird sense. I explained it in my last recap video if you want to go check that out. But I'm looking forward to having a more plot-driven and fun reading month for October, because that is one of the best months to read in. So thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great day. Bye!